Dinesh D'Souza is with me today. He is, as you know, a best-selling author and filmmaker, and his latest movie is about to hit theaters nationwide. It's called Police State, and I gotta tell you guys, I just finished watching. He sent me a screener to watch before this episode so that I could ask good questions about it, and I deliberately watched it. I just finished watching it like 10 minutes before we went on air so that my raw reaction and all my questions could be unscripted and unprepared. Dinesh, it was really good, but I gotta tell you, I kept getting chills up my backbone because it was kind of scary to watch.
It's a scary film, and you know, it's scary not because I'm using the techniques of cinematography to make it scary. It's scary because of what's happening in the country. I made the remark a few days ago that this is not a film I actually wanted to make because I'm an immigrant. I'm rah-rah America. I wrote a book called What's So Great About America. So I never wanted America to reach a place where a film like this needed to be made. But alas, it does. And we're not, we're moving toward a police state, Liz, in my view, but we're not a full-fledged police state. And that's really why I made the film, because I think a film can be a powerful wake-up call to people to say, hey, look where we're going. This is not where we want to be.
Basically, if we don't put a stop to it. And I want to talk a little bit later about what we actually can do to put a stop to it, because it's sometimes startling to see all these different avenues cut off. I know everyone's going to want to watch this movie, so it's in theaters on October 23rd and 25th. You can go to policestatefilm.net to get your tickets. There's a virtual premiere on the 27th of October. You can also go to policestatefilm.net. We'll put the URL for this, guys, so you don't have to remember it. We'll put it all over social media, anywhere that this is. That this episode is posted, so make sure you get your tickets. But Dinesh, you opened the movie with a scene that maybe it's because I am a mother of a young child, but I found particularly startling. It was a live-action reenactment of the FBI raiding the home of a young family that lives in the suburbs. They were eating what looked to be a meal together, breakfast together, and the FBI just burst into their house, scared their children to death, arrested the father, ransacked the home, searching for who knows what, and marched the dad out of the house while the wife and the children were left horrified, stunned, and frightened. And I mean, this is a conversation I have with my husband frequently because we work in politics and in media about, who's going to be the subject of targeting by the deep state next. We all have this phrase that we say, oh, they're coming for Trump, but they're really coming for us. He's just the one standing in the way. And I think it's going to be jarring for people to see when they watch, especially the beginning of this movie, that one of the warnings in your movie is, yes, indeed, they are coming for you. And not just people that say crazy things, not just people that flirt with the edges of agitation or the law, but everyday Americans who are just patriotically trying to defend their country.
I mean, Liz, in classic Liz Wheeler fashion, you have gotten to the heart of the matter, which is to say that, yes, Trump may be the poster boy, the kind of primary target of the police state, but there are going to be Americans who feel immune. They feel, well, I'm not Trump, and I didn't go in the Capitol on January 6th, and I pay my taxes, so I should be okay, shouldn't I? And our message is, we're getting to a point where this police state is not one thing. There's not a single Stalinist dictator who just goes, I'm going to stop all my enemies and I'm going to prevent anybody from taking power. This is a massive octopus that stretches throughout the federal government, many, many agencies of the government, including some that you would not normally enroll in a police state, right? The CDC, the Health Authority, or the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency, CISA, some of these pretty obscure agencies actively involved in censorship, actively involved in political targeting. Sometimes people say to me, well, Dinesh, is this a movie about the FBI? Well, it is, but the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, is 20 times bigger than the FBI. They are massively involved in censorship. They're massively involved in political targeting. And then you've got a lot of agencies and instrumentalities in the private sector. You've got the media, you've got parts of academia, nonprofit groups, digital platforms. So in other words, this can come at you from many different directions. And as you know, in the movie, we feature different types of people just going about their business, in some cases involved in a school board meeting or involved in pro-life activism. And suddenly, boom, they find themselves, they find what Orwell called the boot stamping on the human face, and they really can't believe it.
I mean, it was hard to believe. Many of these stories I was at least tangentially familiar with. You talked to the people involved, which I think makes it so much more tangible to people to feel, oh, wow, this is a mom who has kids like me. This is a dad who was just doing his best to be politically active while providing for his family. And to hear your conversations with them, to see their emotion, brings it to life in a way that I think just reading about it, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's in the news, doesn't always bring to life. But one of the questions, this was actually my favorite part of the film, because you see this and you start to feel, I mean, it wasn't any emotional manipulation on your part, but you start to feel this like hopeless, this fear. You're like, wow, they are coming for me. And it doesn't matter if I'm innocent. It doesn't matter if I tell the truth. How do I have confidence in this system if it's so rigged? And my immediate question was, well, wait a second. Let's take a step back here. And if we're going to try to solve this problem, we have to understand where it came from, because this tangled web didn't just get dropped on us all at once. What was the origin of this? And I thought you did a brilliant job walking through the different things that happened that allowed the overreach that we're experiencing now to take place. Can you walk us through some of those?
Sure. Well, a good way to start is on something that Hillary Clinton said recently. She talked about the MAGA supporters as cult members. And she said that maybe they need, quote, formal deprogramming. And I was like, wait, this whole business about cults and deprogramming, I've heard this before, and my mind flashed back to the incident at Waco. Now, this was back in the 1990s. You might remember Ruby Ridge, Waco. Ruby Ridge was actually under Bush. Ruby Ridge was under George H.W. Bush. Waco was under Bill Clinton. And when there was this kind of horrific incident at Waco, I mean, buildings incinerated, mothers and children, roasted to death, the idea was, and many Americans were, if not supportive, somewhat indifferent, because they thought, oh, those people are kooks. They're weirdos. They're cult members. And so the point is that this kind of dehumanizing rhetoric that Hillary Clinton was deploying is not merely overreaction, or she's engaging in her typical Clintonian hyperbole. No, what she's doing is she is dehumanizing her opponents so as to make them ready targets for criminal incarceration. Of course, in the case of the Nazis, extermination. There was the same kind of dehumanization used against the Jews. So this is actually very scary stuff. I think the turning point for the police state in America was the aftermath of 9/11. And I have to say that me and others were somewhat complicit in this unwittingly, because we were like, okay, we have to give the government these expanded police powers, these expanded surveillance and intelligence powers, because they need the weapons to go after foreign terrorists who are trying to kill us. What we discover is that after doing that for a little while, they decided, sometime perhaps in the Obama years, okay, we've got all these great powers. Now, what about if we deploy them against our political opponents? So I think, ironically, the origin of the police state, at least the power of it, came in the Bush years. So there's a bipartisan aspect to it, but it was politically deployed against the right in the Obama years initially, and now in a massive escalation under Biden.